Vikings, let's win the game.
Vikings fans, the heat in Minnesota is real right now. Hold on to this. Pressure is knocking on our head coach's door because of January. Our young quarterback is catching heat and even got hit with a fine. There is a serious trade rumor involving an athletic quarterback that has everybody talking. In the coaching staff, there is a coach getting calls for a promotion. And at the end, there is a nightmare scenario with a rival coming hard to wreck this defense. But before we break down every detail, stay with me for a quick second. Subscribe to the channel and write a comment about which position the Vikings should prioritize in the draft. Your take drives this debate. Let's go. It hurts to look back at January because we all know how heavy that gets. You build a competitive team, you win tough games, and then the playoffs hit and the conversation changes. That is where Kevin O'Connell ends up right in the middle of it. O'Connell brought stability and a lighter vibe in the locker room after the hangover from the end of Mike Zimmer with Rick Spielman. Nobody can take that away. The problem is that so far the playoff win still has not come. And with how the NFC North is moving, that becomes ammo fast. After the Chicago Bears came back on the Green Bay Packers in the wild card round, one ugly stat got louder. O'Connell is the only head coach in the division without a playoff win. Dan Campbell already has postseason wins. Matt LaFleur does too. The numbers in the O'Connell era look good. A winning record of 43-27 and over 60%. But fans do not hang percentages on the wall. Fans remember what happened when the clock hit 0 in January, and it has been 2 first-round exits since 2022. The pressure starts to stick because the recent Vikings past has that scar. Then comes the most delicate part, quarterback. The story repeats with a different outfit. Back then, after Case Keenum took this team far, the franchise went hunting for a name to lift the offense. Kirk Cousins arrived. There were good moments, sure, but there was also that feeling the ceiling was too low. And while the internal debate raged, the roster got older. The draft did not fix it. The result was a regime change. With O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the team flipped the page. They moved on from Cousins, tried to find value, and the plan became building around J.J. McCarthy. Sam Darnold was part of the story. There was a bet, there was risk, and risk in Minnesota always charges interest. Now, with the season shaky and the offense swinging up and down, the question is on the table. Is it McCarthy? No debate. Or does a veteran arrive to compete and hit the emergency button? I am not going to pretend this is simple. If you bring in a veteran, you buy time and you might win games in the short term, but you can also stall the kid's growth. If you hand everything to the young guy, you accept the bumps and you pay with an ugly loss. Then the fan patience disappears. O'Connell knows that. The locker room feels that. The front office knows that if 2026 turns into another year of games that do not matter by December, the conversation shifts into a different gear. And here is the kind of bleachers level read you do not get just anywhere. Tell me in the comments, are you going into 2026 with McCarthy as the guy, or do you want real competition in that room? Hang with me because the next story is not just about the quarterback. It is about mindset, body language, and a fine that hits the wallet. Some days the score lies, but the details tell the truth. The Vikings beat the Packers, sure, but inside that win there was one moment that had a lot of people scratching their heads. Not because of the run itself, because of what came after. The NFL fined J.J. McCarthy $11,593 for unsportsmanlike conduct. It was a taunt at Packers cornerback Casey and Nixon in the first quarter. McCarthy lowered his shoulder, got 6 yards, and then decided to talk. The worst part is Green Bay already had its playoff situation handled. They even had rotational guys out there. That makes it look bad twice. The result was the penalty pushing Minnesota back. What should have been a manageable second down turned into a long yardage hole. And the drive that looked like a touchdown ended as a field goal. It hurts because that is maturity stuff. And maturity stuff costs the same in January or September. I know the kid plays with fire, and I like that. But there are moments when you have to turn off, look at me, and turn on, close the game. O'Connell had already told him to just be himself. No character, no theatrics. There was that phase with the nickname 9, and then the rough stretch hit. Interceptions, a concussion, and a lot of hits. The whole season felt like that. 1 step forward, 2 steps with a banged-up foot. Then comes the other part that turned into radio and bar talk. After the game, McCarthy sat down, put a towel over his hand, and hid it behind his back. The image played poorly. Ben Lieber went at it and said it looked theatrical, like it was not necessary. And look, to be honest with you, I get both sides. Pain in the throwing hand is not a joke, but quarterback is a spotlight position. Body language speaks. Fans read everything. The issue is that the outside stuff sticks to him. He already had an ankle sprain, a rushed return, and even a small fracture in the hand later in the year. There were games where he left because of pain. There were games where he stayed. And every week it feels like we are guessing which version of McCarthy shows up. The talented spark plug, or the rushed version that gives the rival free ammo. That is why the fine matters more than the money. It becomes a label. Still green, still needs to grow up. But the NFL clock does not wait. The new league year is coming soon. And if Minnesota brings competition into the quarterback room, the conversation gets loud. If they do not, all the pressure lands on his shoulders. Then every gesture becomes a headline. Now think with me. If the front office really decides to bring in an athletic challenger, there is a name out there that has already been linked to the Vikings. And the next story goes straight there. When trade talk starts, my eyebrow goes up immediately, because there is usually smoke. And when the smoke hits the Vikings, the fire turns into the kind of argument that splits a whole bar. The name showing up on the radar is Anthony Richardson. The idea is simple. The Colts could be willing to move him before 2026. And the truth is, his career became a roller coaster way too fast. In 2025, Indianapolis brought in competition. They brought in Daniel Jones. Then Richardson ended up on the bench early. For a guy who was drafted 4th overall, that is a gut punch. And it was not just that. He also had that bizarre practice accident. The resistance band snapped back and hit his eye, causing an orbital fracture. Then, when Jones tore his Achilles, Richardson was still sidelined. So he did not even get the chance to redeem himself when the team needed him. The season passed and left one big question hanging. Do the Colts truly still believe in him? Or is it about to become, let's see what we can get in a trade? So why does Minnesota get pulled into this? Because there is a detail that messes with your head. Back in 2024, after a game against the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell had a conversation with Richardson. Those encouragement words, "You are a bad dude and you are going to play a long time," have popped back up. And they are everywhere now. That is not random. O'Connell is that kind of coach. He connects with players on the human side. And when he believes in someone, he will back it up. But we cannot romanticize it. Richardson is raw talent, big arm, real athlete. He also comes with an injury history and inconsistency. And Minnesota is already living the quarterback development drama. So the question becomes, does it make sense to bring another high volatility project into the same locker room? To be honest with you, if the conversation is cheap competition with a high ceiling, I understand it. The piece even talks about a low-cost draft pick and a rookie deal that is nearing the end. That is the kind of bet Kwesi likes to study. You are not giving away the entire future. You are buying a possibility. But there is the other side, too. A quarterback like that needs a plan. He needs patience. He needs a line and a scheme that protect him. And this fan base in purple and gold cannot live on maybe anymore. We want direction. We want a path. We want to stop waking up to a new quarterback room soap opera every day. And here is the bleachers level read you do not get from a team release. If the Vikings bring in a guy like Richardson, it is a message that nobody is comfortable. Not the starter, not the staff. Tell me in the comments, would you take that swing on Richardson, or do you think it is guaranteed headaches? Stay with me, because the next story hits a different part of the team. And if it happens, it can open a hole in the staff at the worst time. Some things never show up in the highlights, but they win games. One of them is continuity on the coaching staff. But this league works like this. When your unit is cooking, other teams come fishing in your boat. And now, the target might not be just Brian Flores. The coach getting promotion interviews is Durante Jones. He is the defensive passing game coordinator, and he works directly with the defensive backs. And here is the signal. Teams are asking to talk to him about being a defensive coordinator somewhere else. This is not just a casual chat. This is a door opening. The first big push came from Dallas. The Cowboys finished with a defense near the bottom, and they are hunting for someone who can fix the mess. Their list of interviews includes Jones. That is not small, especially because Dallas has been chasing candidates with huge resumes. Now they seem more willing to bet on someone with hands-on work, building a modern defense, and it did not stop there. The New York Jets also requested an interview. The Jets are desperate for a defensive identity. Their defense was bad in 2025, so they look at Minnesota and see a group that finished at the top in efficiency again. Then they start pulling. What makes me uneasy is the timing. If Jones leaves, you mess with the defense's gears in the middle of the process. The Vikings' defense became a source of pride. It became defend the North in real life. And you cannot pretend that happens by magic. There is method, there is teaching, there is accountability in every coverage detail. If you pull the guy who handles the passing game, you can change the fine-tuning, you can change communication, you can even shake the defensive back's confidence. To be honest with you, I think it is fair for him to get recognized. If he is doing good work, he deserves a shot, but I also think about the damage on our side. Because we all know how it goes. You lose an important assistant and you start patching. Then the patch becomes the weak spot and your rival attacks it without mercy. And another thing, when teams start taking your staff, it also means the league respects what the Vikings are building. That is good. It is also dangerous. You can become a farm system for other teams and lose your own stability. I want your read on this. What do you think? If Durante Jones leaves, does the defense hold the level, or do we feel it immediately? Now hang on, because the next one is the heaviest of the day. It is not just losing someone. It is the kind of loss that turns into a nightmare, especially because of who might be calling. You know the kind of rumor that puts ice in your stomach right away, because it is not just losing a good coach, it is losing him to the wrong side. And yes, I am talking about Brian Flores. The possibility that popped up is a very specific nightmare. Flores leaving Minnesota and, in some twisted scenario, ending up in Green Bay. Just saying it makes me mad, and I know it is not certain. There are a lot of steps between now and that, but while there is even a crack in the door, fans are going to spiral. The backdrop is Packers' chaos in the playoffs. They lost to the Bears, and that shook everything. Then Adam Schefter from ESPN reported that the Packers are expected to try to work out an extension with Matt LaFleur in the coming days. He also reinforced that LaFleur has 1 year left on his deal, and that both sides want clarity. When an insider uses that word, I read it as serious conversations happening. Now let's connect the dots carefully. Right now, Flores has had limited real movement. There was an interview with Baltimore, and that is it. But if Green Bay, for any reason, ends up without a clear direction, they could decide to flip styles. We have lived that story. The Vikings moved on from a defense-first head coach and hired an offense-first head coach. It worked for culture, it worked for the environment, but the rival could try the opposite path. And the Bears finding success with Ben Johnson inside the division only increases the pressure for a fast answer. To be honest with you, I cannot stomach Flores with that G on his chest, because he is the brain of our recent identity. He built a tough defense. He adjusts mid-game like very few, and he has the locker room's respect. That is priceless. It is even more valuable when your offense is swinging. And there is a detail that is scary. If Green Bay decides to turn the page and bring in a defensive mastermind, Flores would be an obvious name. He still has the hunger to prove he can be a head coach again, and he is young enough to do it. If the Packers front office is thinking we need something totally different, he fits perfectly. But let's be real too. Schefter also said they are trying to extend LaFleur. That could slam the door shut fast. But until it is signed, the drama exists. And for anyone who lives and breathes Vikings football, it is infuriating because we know the impact. It is not just a departure. It is a direct hit to defend the North. And that is why this whole conversation gets heavier. It stacks everything at once. Pressure on O'Connell, uncertainty at quarterback, coaches taking interviews, and now this Flores ghost with the rival. This is not just today's chatter. It is a signal about where this team is right now. So I am asking you straight. What do we do with all these signals hitting at the same time? Because there is a path choice here, and it is going to say a lot about who the Vikings are right now. I'm going to tell you something that is not comfortable, but it is real. The Vikings are at a point where the team has to decide who it wants to be when the calendar tightens. Because what we have seen across these stories is a snapshot of the same issue. The talent is there, the culture is there, but the final step is still missing. The pressure on Kevin O'Connell is not because he is bad, it is because he is good, and the bar rises. The NFC North is turning into a heavyweight fight, and being behind in playoff wins is like carrying a rock in your backpack. Meanwhile, J.J. McCarthy is learning the hard way. Fines, gestures, body language, everything becomes a microscope, and that is quarterback life. You can love the guy one Sunday and doubt him the next. Then Anthony Richardson's name shows up as a possibility. That is the front office looking in the mirror and thinking, do I need a plan B or am I going to ride plan A all the way? And when the conversation leaves the field and hits the staff, it gets worse. Because Durante Jones getting interviews shows the rest of the league is trying to pull parts out of our defensive engine. And as if that was not enough, Brian Flores becoming a rival side rumor is the kind of thing that makes you want to slam the table. But that is the NFL. If you blink, somebody takes what you built, and they do it smiling. My bold claim is this. If Minnesota nails the quarterback decision and keeps the spine of the defense intact, this team becomes a real threat. That is not empty hype. The foundation is there. But if they misread it, we can fall into another cycle of almost again. And I have seen that movie too many times. So I want to hear you. Drop your comment because this space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Vikings football. What would you do with McCarthy? Would you bring in competition? And on Flores and the staff, do you think the franchise can hold the line? Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go!